Buddy, how do I sound now? Testing radio check. Jerry, why don't you give me a text real quick? Let me get my guest back here. That's what happens when you come from another planet, guys. What can I say? All right, let me get Helen. Jerry, if you can hear me, give me a text real quick. Hi, Helen.
Hello.
All right, I'm waiting. It looks like the server, we're on air. I need to double check. Hang on for just a second here. It doesn't sound like we are live. Stand by just a second here. Is that a yes, Jerry? I'm going to look in chat. I actually haven't been in the chat. Let me check. All right, we're good. All right. Okay, yay. So I guess we're back. Obviously, I told them we were from another planet, so that happened.
That's true, isn't it?
Oh, what can we say? You know, when we're multidimensional beings. Who knows what dimensional space we were connecting in on? So that could be it anyways. But yeah. All right. So where were we? Well, you know what's interesting? I know in a world that's so busy these days, I mean, there's so much chatter going on. And you know what I notice is that everything is everybody's just talk, BS. And that's why I like interviews with higher consciousness or something that has some substance and depth to it besides what people are just mainly talking about. So once again, I do appreciate you being on tonight to talk about things that are beyond the linear world, things that go beyond, on a multidimensional scale. So what attracted you to this? Now, I know you had a lawyer, you were a practicing lawyer, right?
Yes, I did. I was a criminal lawyer mainly, or I did a lot of family law and general practice, but mainly crime, and then did mediation as well. And I found myself spending a lot of time with my clients because you find out their life story in the course of getting your instructions. And at some point in time, something they would say would just hit me as being, oh, there's your pattern, there's the problem. Like, you keep thinking of things this way instead of looking at it this way. So I'd spend most of my time going, hey, have you ever noticed if you did it this way, it might work better? And then they'd go away and come back and go, hey, I tried that, it worked. And that was great. It wasn't terribly great legal advice at the time, so I kind of felt a bit bad about that side of things and thought I'd better practice my life elsewhere. But it was more that, you'd find that people were having problems in their lives because they were approaching things in a certain way. And often it never occurred to them to think of them a different way. And when it did occur to them, it worked really easily. So, yeah.
Exactly. It's all based on perception and programming to some degree. And belief systems. I notice that people kind of self-sabotage themselves these days.
Yeah, we all do that. I mean, we've all got programs. And the thing is, too, that those programs or the patterns that we come in with, they're as much a part of what we're meant to be as everything else, too, because those things that we do that we think of as mistakes, they lead us in ways that we wouldn't have gone otherwise, that cause us to have experiences that we wouldn't have had otherwise, that then become the basic building blocks for other things in life later. I've had some friends who have gone through horrendous childhoods and things, but it's caused them to learn how to heal themselves in such a way that now they are helping thousands of other people to heal themselves. And had they have not gone through that, they would never have had that to offer. So I don't know, I think, we shouldn't be too down on ourselves for anything that we go through, because at some point in time, if we can find the gem in it and find the gift in it, it can be worthwhile.
I agree with you on that one. And of course, I do believe in cellular healing, and regeneration, because, even if you have cellular trauma, you have to move that energy out on a multidimensional level, if you ask me. Now, obviously, you work with spiritual techniques. You are a healer to some degree, aren't you?
Yes, I do. I've done various modalities. I've done some Qigong kind of healing and some Reiki and a thing called spiritual surgery, which was taught by Brian Catamol.
Is that etheric surgery? Is that what you're talking about?
It's on the etheric template. It's like surgery on the etheric template, which seems to work really quite well. I'm always surprised myself because, in many ways, I am just ordinary. I'm a normal person that doesn't think these things can work, but when they do, they do, and it's great.
Absolutely, they do.
Yeah, and the other thing, I kind of like poking around in the way that the patterns of people's thoughts, and when I see the pattern, I can usually suggest a way to rearrange that pattern to line it up so that they're happy with themselves instead of thinking that there's a problem there.
Right.
And
that sounds like holographic repatterning to some degree. You know, I don't know
Yes.
if you're familiar. You sound like you're probably already doing that. And that's the funny thing is we are natural healers to begin with. It's just one of those things of reminding yourself and remembering who you are as a quote unquote multidimensional being. And with that comes all of these gifts and abilities. And part of that is the healing, the natural body, the body's natural ability to heal through consciousness. And of course, being a facilitator of that.
Yeah. And that all comes down to, I mean, everyone's got a different way of being able to do these kind of things. Like everyone's a healer, but they might have 1,000 different ways of expressing that or doing that.
Right. Yeah.
And whether it's a healer or whether it's something else. But that's, I think, what we all have to do is just try and find that unique individual thing that we're meant to be, that we are, that we feel deep in us, and stop denying it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, do what makes you happy too. I think that when you follow spirit and also merge with your higher self, if you're following what makes you happy, obviously you're going to do better in life. And the illusion of, I would suspect, instead of doing something that makes you miserable, that's not beneficial to you or anybody else. At least that's the way I see things.
Yeah, and it comes down to that. Like, there's a lot of all of the information out there in the world now as to where we're this period of time, this next 2-week period of time, this really interesting September time when Wave X or whatever people want to call what's supposed to be coming through.
Right.
It can be confusing, and there's going to potentially be chaos going on. I mean, there is chaos in the world all the time, but there's increasing chaos. And we need to have a way, an internal rudder of some sort, an anchor that allows us to find some guidance and some steering.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's usually when you learn how to navigate on the highest level or on a higher level of consciousness. You know, I think you're talking about the galactic wave. Is that what they're calling it? I forget what they're calling it now. It's something like that.
Well, there's any number of different ways that people have described it. It's loosely been called Wave X most recently, but it's also the photon band, the photon belt.
Photon belts, that's been going on for a while now. We were just discussing that the other day with the ascension work. I mean, that's been hitting the planet for a long time. And of course, that brings up a lot of multidimensional design. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that the photon belt's tied in with the Mayan calendar thing because that date in 2012, the December date, was also not only the alignment of a whole pile of things, but apparently it was also the point where the Earth traveling around the sun, which is moving around the greater central sun apparently, all of that would come within that photon belt all the time, whereas before the Earth was traveling in and out of the photon belt.
Right.
From that time we were in galactic light ongoingly now, apparently, which is supposed to raise the frequency. And David Wilcock talks about a wave that is due to come through as well, and he talks about how over periods of time in history there has been a number of points where there's an exponential change in evolution, where new plants and species and things like that are discovered suddenly to have existed where they didn't exist just before. And we're due for one of these exponential upgrades in our evolution any minute now, apparently, which again ties in with this wave, whichever way it's different people are putting it different ways, I suppose.
I call it the ascension wave, and I mean, they can call it whatever they want, but it's probably exactly what we've been talking about for a very long time now with DNA activation through frequency. And of course, with that comes an alteration in your molecular structure, a mutation, which basically we're becoming avatars, but not the transhumanism stuff. I'm talking a true full light ascension harmonic. But I do see a piggybacking off of that technology, which is ascension technology. They're trying to piggyback off of that here and try to control and manipulate and divert ascension through their own transhumanism program. And of course, that's going to fail because what I know is that the frequencies that are descending onto the planet are going to blow that stuff out. It's going to, I don't care what they're doing, they're going down. And I realize that very clearly. So good luck, don't let the universe hit you on the butt on the way out. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I've read a number of places that are all describing the same thing, that they've already lost.
Yeah, they certainly have. Absolutely, they have. And I got a real clear message of that too, not too long ago about that. And also the technology that they're using to control, manipulate. It's already obsolete. It's already gone. Yeah. But this is their last attempt to control, manipulate, and it's really, well, you see it. You see the violence, you see the craziness and the hostility, but at the same time, you're seeing a ascension process coming on where people are actually merging to higher levels of consciousness and accepting their celestial heritage and allowing that to descend in, and that's huge.
And to a large extent too, the whole, whatever chaotic things happen, it's almost like they need to happen too in order to trigger people to just have to drop everything and go, oh, look, like, there's too many things to deal with. I've just got to be real here. Instead of putting up the false fronts that you have to in order to comply with society or whatever it is. It comes down to you've just got to be real.
Right. Well, I think after a while, the false matrix gets very boring. What they've created in this illusion, this simulation of life, is very boring. And when you start navigating on a multidimensional design through higher consciousness, it's exciting. It's enlightening. It's peaceful. I mean, it's just a completely different dynamic in energy. So this is why I like to ride the tides of the higher levels of consciousness versus, nosediving into the false matrix, because that place is a dead end.
Yeah, actually, funny you said about dreams before. I do have like, once in a blue moon, I'll have a seemingly prophetic dream, and I did have one like that years ago where everyone was travelling on the normal path on this road, and I was up on these mountaintops, jumping from mountaintop to mountaintop and swinging from these invisible ropes that were there, and came down the other side, just with this feeling of exhilaration. And as you were talking about, that it's being very boring out there, the way, the exhilaration of having gone this alternate route. With no visible means of support, as it were, which that's one of the dreams that I have held on to in order to keep the faith, as it were, when I am doing things that are a bit outside of, because I don't have a job, I don't have a normal life. My friends kind of worry because they think, how the hell are you going to support yourself? And I worry too, but I'm actually experimenting right now in letting the universe take care of it.
That's right. So welcome to my world. Yeah. It works that way. I work independently, but it's feast or famine. I mean, if you work for yourself, it's extremely difficult. So there's no doubt about that. But at the same time, I paid my dues working for people, and of course, it's a long story where I've been on the timeline. But I refuse to work for, people and making them rich anymore. I'm done with it. I'm not doing it anymore. And I came to that conclusion. I'm like, I'm done. I'm just done.
I remember reading something back in the 1980s that Stuart Wilde had written about that you can't be free if you work for somebody else. And it's pretty much true. And it kind of sunk in when I read it, and I thought, that's true. It's true.
Yeah. Well,
and it took me some years to get to the point where I could, but I did. I just resigned one day. I just thought, I've got to do it.
Yep.
And
it's a good feeling, isn't it? Doesn't it feel like a weight's been lifted off of you when you resign?
Oh, yeah. Then you spend the next 10 years going, oh, my God, what did I just do?
I remember one time I resigned from surveillance one day, and it was just like, I felt like I was born again. I left, and I was like, wow, I feel so light and good. And then like 48 hours later, I'm like, okay, I need to consider some income now. But it's one of those things where you just have to trust the universe. At some point in the continuum, you have to let go of the wheel. And it's just one of those things where, you can't work your life away and then have nothing to show for it also. And I see that a lot. People sell their dreams out for a false matrix and a control. It doesn't make any sense to me. And nowadays, especially here in America, I mean, you can work your butt off and you'll still be like in debt out the wazoo because everything is skyrocketed. So that's once again the financial, that big implosion that's going on, but it's also sucking people in like a gravity well. And so what I say is let go of the wheel, break orbit with that matrix, and create a new one.
Yeah, and I understand totally that it's really hard for people to do that, or to psych themselves up to doing it. But I think it starts with just listening to the intuitive voice inside that's trying to tell you something, because it's ultimately going to be the one that saves you. It's going to be the one that leads you out to where you need to be.
Right. Well, I've seen people work for 30 to I don't know how many years of their life poured into corporations, and then they get canned. They get nice packages, don't get me wrong, but literally after that, it's like all these years for nothing, right? All those years they could have spent going to college, I don't know, doing something constructive, and they spend their time and their energy getting sucked away, and then they get let go, and then it's just ridiculous. And you think to yourself, what did you do with the last 30 years of your life? Where have you been? And I think this is important to reflect on this. What are you doing on the timeline? Where have you been on the timeline? What do you want to do down the road? And that's huge. People really need to look at that.
And that's not to say either that people spending 30 years in a job is a bad thing, because there would be people who that's exactly what they were meant to do, and that's exactly the experience they came in to have, and that they've done great things through that work in that time. So, I don't want to be putting anyone down for having a job. Hell, that's fine. But yeah, it's kind of like a balance, isn't it, where you need to
Well, you need a spiritual balance. I think that you have to have, even if you're doing some kind of a illusion of a job, you still need to have a balance for spirit and your multidimensional design. And what I'm seeing here is that I truly believe that this matrix has been nothing but a deception and a lie. It has been sucking people into false matrices for a very long time. If we lived in the real new Earth star consciousness, nobody would be working. We would all be doing what we need to do through instant manifestation. Everybody can travel wherever they want to travel through consciousness to whatever star system. This sounds like science fiction, but really this is what the multiverse is about. And for those of you who are interested in all the extraterrestrials and all this, well, that's what it's about. It's about consciousness and motion. And literally, it's not about you working as a slave for your entire freaking life so that you can make money and you can get sucked into healthcare systems that don't heal you because they're too busy stealing the patents. I mean, I can go on and on about a lot of this stuff because we do have the natural ability to heal through frequency, as we all know. And this is what I like about this photon shift, the ascension waves that are connecting down. They're moving the energy in the right direction. Whether people like it or not, we're going. And we are ascending and we are shifting. And the easier you are about it to calibrate to the next level, the less drama will happen. I mean, that's just the way it works. So I don't know what your impression is of that.
No, exactly that. And as you said, the photon thing brings a frequency. Frequency has its own inbuilt thing where, you strike a frequency, it does a specific thing. So that frequency that's coming through will evolve us, whether we like, as you say, whether we like it or not. And just learning to relax and go with it. That's what we need to be doing at this point in time. I saw just posted on Facebook before a nice quote. It's a Lakota prayer. I'll just read it to you because it's what we need to do. And it says, "Teach me how to trust my heart, my mind, my intuition, my inner knowing, the senses of my body, the blessings of my spirit. Teach me to trust these things so that I may enter my sacred space and love beyond my fear, and thus walk in balance with the passing of each glorious sun." And it's a Lakota prayer. But it's when I like simplifying things, it comes down to that. It comes down to trust that intuition, and choose love over fear. And
right, yeah. And fear is a program. It's just an obstacle of illusion. It's a program. People need to rise above that and transcend it. I think it's conditioning and entrainment, personally. A lot of it.
We have, and it's very hard for people to come out from underneath conditioning because we're so conditioned. We're conditioned to not question the conditioning as well.
Right. I think I've always been kind of different in that. I've always been wired differently. I've always known. I've had that in my DNA, and I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, and I think I have too. I've usually been the odd one out and the strange odd one in the corner.
Right, the black sheep and the black sheep beyond the black sheep. That's me.
Beyond the black sheep. We should write a book called that.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Let's
get a compilation of strange people. Write a chapter each.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Well, the thing I like about your book, it is for beginners, but it's also for people who are expanded on the path as well. So it's kind of wired for everybody, isn't it?
I hope so. I don't know. I always think that people who are already along the path have probably come across all of these things, but then sometimes there's just something put in a certain way because it's often just the way something's put that will click for somebody. So I hope there's something in there for everyone.
Oh, I'm sure there is. Well, I think it's how you word things too. In a day like this where everybody talks in such a strange language to me these days, it almost seems foreign. It seems to me like there's so much foreign chatter. I mean, what I call foreign chatter is just chatter, period. It doesn't make any sense. If you listen to people or even watch some of the stuff they write, it's like on textbooks or actually in Facebook or any place. It's so scattered. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So I've stopped. I've kind of walked away from a lot of this stuff. And I realize that most divinity comes from higher consciousness. And when people start communicating correctly, they have inspiration in their thoughts. They know how to communicate through a multidimensional layer, that people don't normally relate to. So I think your book is really important. When I first wrote my book, Transmutation Through Ascension, I didn't realize how important that book was until now, because it actually touches base with everything we're actually going through as well on the timeline. So it's amazing how Spirit guides us to write things, and then we don't realize what we're doing. But at the same time, later on down the path, we say, wow, I'm really glad I wrote that. That's a benchmark. That's a time capsule.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Yeah, and actually, Spirit Seeds, which is my book, is actually it's a revised version. It's the second edition of my first book, which is called A Handful of Seeds. And yeah, I felt like that's been sitting in a time capsule because when I wrote it, it was kind of, I'm terrible at marketing and I didn't get it out there in a big way kind of thing. So it sat around not doing anything, but now I feel like it's more the time where it's meant to come out.
Oh, absolutely. So, and the title, I like the way you changed the title.
Yes. just simplified down again, isn't it?
Right. It just flows better energetically speaking now. So there was something.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And also, you work with a lot of colors. You are an artist, and I wanted to touch on that a little bit about your background as an artist, how you got involved in that.
Oh, I didn't really get involved as much as I just like bright colours, and I like the way that certain colours bounce off other colours and things like that. And so my art is just an attempt to put bright colours together. And it comes out in painting and in collage. And the collage part I find interesting. And it's something that everyone can do, because most people can get a pair of scissors and cut out a piece of paper. And you just get pieces of pictures that you like and juxtapose them, and you can put some in the foreground, put the big pieces in the foreground, the little pieces in the background, you make a 3D effect, and then you stick a photo of yourself in it, and you can create what I call 5D real estate, which is a visualization of where you'd like to put yourself. Nice. And it's funny, I made a wedding present for some friends like a decade or more ago of them sitting on a deck and in certain colours and certain positions, and I put a couple of photos of them in there. And like it was, I think 10, 15 years later, they'd moved house and all of this sort of thing, and we took a photo, and the photo was the reverse image, like when you turned it round, they were sitting in the same positions as between each other. There was a teacup in exactly the same position as it was in the collage. The colours were the same, the whole layout was the same. It was like really uncanny.
It's like you created that for them ahead of time in the illusion of time.
Or they created it by looking at it, I don't know.
Yeah, it could be a combination, right? Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, magic happens, right?
Yeah, and one of those things about creation too is it's a really simple process. You hold a vision in your mind, and then you have a feeling about that. And if the feeling is like that feeling of excitement and joy and wow, this is great, then you start creating it. And and it's as simple as that. Like it's emotion coupled with holding that vision.
Exactly. Yeah, the power of the mind. That's the bottom line, and people need to use it more often. I saw an article that just about maybe go ballistic, and about them talking about trying to get everybody up to speed on with telepathy on Facebook. And I was thinking to myself, I've been interfaced with synthetic telepathy, and that's a bad avenue for these guys to go down. And I guess I can elaborate at some point in the continuum. But I don't know if you saw that article or not. But it's the future of Facebook. And did you see that article?
No, I didn't.
Oh, yeah. Well, Zuckerberg's talking about, the future of Facebook is telepathy. Well, hello, but I've been involved in that artificial telepathy since 2004, and I understand how it can affect the brain and what it does, and how they use programming to alter people. So it's not necessarily a positive thing. So we're going to have to nip that one. But I do see, there's this wave coming in on their end, which is all about digitizing people, literally. Everybody get digitized into this hive collective of artificial intelligence based on man, not based on higher consciousness or spirit. So that's something we need to be looking at. Not to change the subject about what you're doing as an artist, but I want to point that out.
Yeah. No, and actually I was going to ask about what your experiences have been in that regard, because I would be interested to know. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have several books on it, and of course I have a documentary, not to go about me, but I was interfaced with the technology starting in 2004, and it's a long story with being inducted into the covert program, but I understand very clearly how it works, and I still have anomaly signals today due to that technology. So that's why I'd like to talk to little Zuckerberg, and I'm sure half of their ideas have come from my template that was interfaced back in 2004. So, but yeah, it's an insidious program, because what it does is it's mind control. It's literally about controlling and manipulating brainwaves. So it's not.
I think you should tell us more, because I reckon on your radio show you get to talk to everyone else, but you don't get to say about what you've been through, and I'd be interested to just hear a snippet of it.
Oh, no, not at all. Well, I'm sure I bore the listeners because they have heard my interviews before.
Oh, right.
But yeah, literally it's about interfacing with artificial intelligence and a live handler real time, and that deals with programs, numbers, codes, serial numbers, and all sorts of programs based on artificial telepathy. So basically, I have a sentence, they finish the sentence, the handler communicates with me live feed real time. We have live field real-time communication, live feed where there's visuals, remote viewing is all incorporated into this. So basically they use it for a PsyCore program, they can use it for recruitment, they can use it for their spy agencies, which are very high up in clearance. And of course they can use it to recruit for Manchurian candidates, mind control candidates, and then it gets ugly with monarchs and things like that. So there's a big system of where it can go with the technology, and where I've been with it, it has been destructive and abusive, even though I stayed positive with it, and I had to actually testify and turn these guys in 2006. And of course, that was a fiasco. But literally, at least I stood up and I held my ground. And I have books out on it called I the Remote, Black Operations and Ares Bound 52. And there's a sequel called Program by Deception. Then I have I the Remote, a documentary, and I'll send you a copy of that. We talked about that off air, but that's what it is. And to this day, I mean, I have a lot of things going on an electrical level and on my with anomaly signals that are due to the technology. So.
And how do you detect that in yourself? How do you know?
Measured. I had a chief scientist for alien technology research measure this, and then I have a 45-minute raw video that nobody's ever seen of the implant analysis. What you'll see on the DVD documentary is just a few tidbits, just highlights of the implant analysis, but you don't see the raw deal. I have the raw footage, and so I'm loaded with signals, loaded.
Yeah, and so can you tell the difference between a natural signal and one of these artificial signals?
Oh yeah.
And what does that difference feel like?
Well, it's fast forward. It's very digitized, and when I talk about digitized, everything is very, very. It's not like natural telepathy where it flows with ease and higher consciousness. This is about something that basically has you constantly slammed with dialogue, visuals, psychotronics, artificial telepathy, and then live handlers, and then manipulation. They can literally hack into what we call brain hacking. They can take you over remotely and manipulate your body, and what we also call electronic possession. They can literally take you over that way. So if you're a channel and you're a natural conduit, you can be accessible with this technology. And a lot of it's satellite driven, so they can take a black satellite driven technology array system, interface you, triangulate you as a target, interface you onto their communication system, and you're done. I mean, literally, your neural circuits, everything gets interfaced onto the artificial intelligence with a live handler in real time. So it's not just an AI that's a mock radio. They actually have a real person there inducting you and pulling you through the program. So it can get pretty vicious, and I saw the dark side of it. I tried to hold the light for it. I tried to really communicate what it can be used for. I said, this is great for astronauts. It's great for this. It's great for that. But when push comes to shove, these guys weren't about that. And that's what I realized. So I kind of stand up and talk about it more and more just because there's a dark side to this technology I don't want to see out of control, because the spirit and the soul is so significant. And you know that. I mean, your natural telepathy, your gift with source, your multidimensional design, who you are as a multidimensional being, that's sacred ground.
And I think the important thing, I suppose, to realize is that the source, whoever, whatever it is that you call God, the source, they've got to jump on all of that. Like they're beyond, they're beyond that technology. Yes. And one of the ways I've heard it described recently, and I just really resonated with it, is that if we're going to pray for anything, let's just pray for that divine source can, I'll put it into my words, miracle everything away into a state of wonderfulness. That's because cool. We might as well be praying for that as anything, because the divine source is way ahead of us in terms of trying to figure out how to do it and all of that sort of thing. Our minds are never going to try and work out how we overcome these kind of parasitic obstacles that are stopping the world from being the heaven it could be.
Exactly.
But the source knows, and if we just ask, that's the whole point, is this place of free will. It's, that free will needs to be exercised in favour of asking source to sort it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I always surrender to the streams of creation, as I always say, and let go of the wheel and trust higher self, oversoul, superconscious, and source. And that's why I never delegate my power to anything except that's the only thing, prime source, the full light universe. That's it. Yeah. But I do know you're right. All of this stuff doesn't exist in the multiversal consciousness. It doesn't exist. All their technology, everything they've created here stays here. Unfortunately, it dissipates, it implodes. But what happens is we keep ascending to our multidimensional state, which is really perfection. So, yeah. But I see it, in the meantime, I address it because I want to forewarn people and educate them to the point where they understand that there is a technological warfare out there that can possibly induct them and pull them into a program they would not be happy about. When I saw this article with this guy on Facebook, I'm thinking to myself, you guys have no idea what you're getting involved in. You start that. So I'll be on his butt. I'll tell you what, if they start that. Big time.
Yeah, and then going back to just the ordinary man in the street or the ordinary person in the street, they wouldn't have a clue that those kind of technologies exist, let alone that they could be being affected by them.
Right.
Things like that.
It's funny, Helen, because it's more and more. I mean, more targeted individuals, more people getting hit with artificial telepathy, more people getting programmed and being classified as schizophrenic when they're not, because they're getting heterodyned with what we call EEG cloning and heterodyning, which is a remote assault technology. I have people contacting me out I can't begin to tell you how many people contact me for help regarding being hit with these types of programs and warfare programs. And it's not acceptable. It's overlooked in DC. I don't know how it is in Australia, but here it's an epidemic almost.
Hmm.
And how are
Yeah.
things over there in Australia? I was going to ask you.
Oh, sunny. The birds are chirping. The wind chimes are
Nice.
chiming.
Oh,
So
it's
fun.
beautiful. That sounds great. I have
Yeah.
so
And
many
just
friends over there. I should move there. It's
you
such a
should.
beautiful
Everyone should.
place.
Well, no.
It just seems like such a beautiful, beautiful place.
It's we have to call ourselves the lucky country, and I think most Australians do recognise that we are very lucky to be here. Like when you look at things that go on in the rest of the world, we're touch wood. We've got snakes.
That's the only thing I really don't care for a whole lot, but they're everything's poisonous over there, right?
Oh, allegedly. I mean, I think everyone's got their fair share of poisonous things. It's just that we've got the most poisonous things.
But you know how to navigate. You're pretty good over there as a society. You know how to get around it, right?
Yeah, we're trying to figure out how to get around our Prime Minister, who's a bit of a worry. But yes,
Yeah, it's a
he's
beautiful
he's
place.
made me go blank now just thinking of him.
Aw. Sorry about that. It'll come back to you when you're supposed to have it, I guess. But
Yeah.
let's give the rundown insofar as how everybody can get a hold of you if they want to contact you. And also, your books are on Amazon.com. Are they anyplace else?
They are on Amazon.com and also on the Create Space forum or gallery or whatever you call it. If you go to Amazon.com, you have to put in Spirit Seeds by Helen Downs. And I really apologise to the lady that I didn't realise also has a book out called Spirit Seeds. I didn't know. But yes, it's under Spirit Seeds by Helen Downs.
Nice.
And it's subtitled An Introductory Guide to Some of Life's Mysteries. And it's a simple, effective orientation into worlds beyond our normal view of things and a way of strengthening your own connection to who you really are. So it's a sort of a beginning of a journey for people who are at that point. And I would say it's also it's the book to buy for your friend more so. It's like when you know all of this stuff, it's the book to give to your friend that doesn't know this stuff, to just give them a gentle nudge to peel outside of that 3D view of things and to kind of recognise that we've got something multidimensional going on here and that we're part of that.
Mm-hmm. A good reminder, without a doubt. I think that's one of the best gifts you can give a friend is actually a little nudge to tell them that, hey, that's a false matrix. Get yourself out of it, right?
Yeah.
Very important. I was going to ask you, I bet you'd be great at sand paintings.
I've never tried, but I've seen the videos of those guys that do it on the beach. Have you seen? Well, that's probably not paintings. That's something else, isn't it? Where they go and rake.
Oh, right, yeah, but it's very meditative. But yeah, there's some really beautiful sand paintings. I know a lot of Native Americans do those, and I think you'd be really good at that. You might want to check it out sometime.
Yeah, I'll see what leads me to being a sand painter. Somebody years ago told me that I should be painting coffins, and it turned out that I ended up painting a coffin for an art exhibition of cardboard coffins.
Really? Oh, that's cool. What did you do for the design work?
Oh, the same as I do all the time. It's just, big flowers and leaves and things with bright colours. And
wow, that's a great idea, Helen. I don't know if they do that or not, but what a wonderful idea is to paint coffins and make them all really cool.
Yeah, well, these were like recycled cardboard, and the exhibition was held by a lady who was a funeral celebrant who wanted people to become aware that they had a choice in the kind of coffins that they choose, because the funeral home will hitch up for $3,000 and more for a pine box, the standard, whereas you have the choice to choose what kind of coffin you'd like to have. Most of the time people don't think ahead to want to know about those kind of things, so they leave it in the hands of the funeral home and their kids get ripped off for the price of a coffin, when you could be doing this thing where, when my husband died, his 3 children and I got together in the days after that and painted one of these coffins together, and it was a really nice contemplative thing where all of us were together in that silent space while we were all painting and thinking of him and processing emotions and things that you do after somebody's died. And yeah, it was just a really nice process in itself to have that to do, to not just ring up the funeral parlour and say send us a box.
Right. I think that's an awesome idea. I think it's wonderful. I wish more people would do
Yes.
that, actually. Well, you think
Yeah.
about it, it's just a scam anyway, and people get planted. I hate to say it like that, but literally, I believe in the green funerals. I mean, the green burials where they're just, it's all organic and natural. To me, in my opinion, I think that's the best way. Or cremation. Well, some people may not be into cremation. I always thought it'd be cool to be shot into space. That'd be kind of neat.
Yeah, the cremation, you can cremate these coffins too, which is
Hmm.
what we ended up doing too. But
Yeah, I think that's wonderful that you can paint those, and I'm sure the spirit's looking down, smiling.
sure is.
Instead of this like
Laughing, I think.
mundane box that they just drop into the ground, right? You know what's
Yeah.
interesting, Helen? I've always wondered why it was 6 feet under and not 7.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
is
the
there a
six is
reason?
well, in numerology, a 6 is a more limiting number. A 7 is a spiritual number. And technically speaking, if you were going to bury somebody, I would go 7 feet, not 6.
Yeah, I wonder if, and it's just a thought that sprang into my head, is that the in the druidic things, they've got different lengths resonate, again with the frequency thing.
Right?
If you were making a wand or something like that, the length of it, or a sword, the length of it actually had something to do with the power it would have.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the length, the distance of 6 feet has got something to do with the frequency
It's possible.
choice. Might
Yeah.
do. Mm.
Well, it's always interesting. I always thought about that. And then I just saw something recently on paranormal investigators leaving like recording devices at graveyards and at, gravestones for an EVP. And I'm like, it's just so interesting. It's so Twilight Zone these days. But the world has become a very strange place, in my opinion. It's just become very surreal.
Well, because also there are so many variations on the human theme, or the
Hmm.
multi-dimensional theme that we are, and I think this Earth is a place where perhaps we come to experience everything in some way. There's a book called Right Use of Will. It's a series of books, and it starts with one called Right Use of Will, and it's channeled by God in the first person, according to the author, and it is very interesting. But basically, the guts of it says that everything has a right time and a right place. It's not like there's good and there's evil, and one has to be vanquished and the other one has to. It's that everything can exist, but it needs to be in its right time and its right place, and then it has its right relevance. And we have so many variations on the theme.
Hmm.
Um, but
Right.
yeah, I suppose the thing again is to find our internal rudder as to which part of all of that multitude of information is what we're meant to resonate, or what we do resonate with.
Right. Exactly. Well, it's
Mm.
like two worlds existing simultaneously. I mean, you have a more dense environment, which I consider to be what we're looking at right now, versus what we call the New Earth star, which is more high frequency and etheric to some degree, more multidimensional, multiversal. So it's about, in my opinion, raising your frequency to the highest level so that you can phase shift to the next level, which would be a New Earth star. In other words, you're taking your body with you through consciousness. You're actually physically taking your body with you. And I think that's what the ascension deal is about. And of course, right now, I think we're trying to get people out of the trap, out of the false matrix, where they can drop the density, let go of everything that's holding them down, and then move to the next level where it's a smooth sailing, where there's none of this violence. I mean, you can say it's there for some reason or another, but literally with a newer star consciousness, it's not there. It doesn't exist.
Mm.
So, I mean, and that's what I like. I like peace. I like bliss. Yeah, I can do the battlefield. I'm a good warrior, but at the same time, I'm really not interested in that anymore. I just want to keep ascending. And I think many people do as well. I think a lot of people are getting burned out on the drama of life and the illusion.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, these ascended kind of zones, as it were, they exist here and now. They're not something that we're not kind of floating off into them. They're here around us, and
Mhm.
it's just a question of shifting our frequency so that we
Right.
can match, understanding that frequency already exists and it's right there.
Yep, it's a resonance wave and it's DNA activation. That's the bottom line. That's why it's interesting to watch them, come out with their GMOs and everything they're doing. They're doing everything in their power to switch off the DNA right now and the sequence of the DNA because they're terrified of ascension. They're terrified of that mutation, the natural mutation of ascension. I know it. You can read it. You can read their fear. So, I've never seen many people so desperate to control, manipulate a mass collective in my entire life. It's almost laughable, quite
It's
honestly.
getting really so blatant
Yeah.
too in so
Well,
many
it's yeah,
ways.
it's really transparent and basically they're right there, hey, we're here, we're telling you exactly what we're doing, but at the same time people have to say no. They have to say that's not acceptable. It's like a little kid throwing a tantrum. You have to put him in a timeout or do something about it. You can't let this thing get out of control. So I think by alternative media we do that to some degree. We're keeping people up to speed to the point where they can say, "Hey, I choose something on a higher level of spirit versus this control and manipulation." We don't need to relive World War II and the Nazis in Germany. We don't need to do that anymore. So it's time to move on to the next level.
Yeah, because if you took a poll of the world, and I'd really like for somebody to set up a website where they could just get everyone in the world to vote on whether they want it run the way, I mean, nobody wants it run the way it is. We'll look at the kind of technologies that are available that we could be using to make this place just a fantastic place. And they're being suppressed by those companies and things like that. Well, that'll fall away, and
it has
people
to
will start, yeah,
it's going to have to fall away, and that's the beauty of it. I mean, it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't fit. It's an old paradigm. It has to go. Even corporations and governments and religions, it's going away. It's all imploding. They're fighting so hard to keep it, and I'm telling you just got to let it go. You got to let it go, because there's a big multiverse out there, and it's an unstoppable force. They can't do anything to control and manipulate that force. That's the big generator out there. It's not putting up with man's little agenda. I'll tell you that much. So, you know what? We're getting ready to wrap this up pretty soon, Helen. I told you this hour was going to fly by.
God, it's at the time. Look, let me just go. Hey, everyone, buy Spirit Seeds. It's a book.
It's a wonderful book with a beautiful cover. I put the link in the chat room. Please go and access it. Yes, buy your book. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
I think it's wonderful. I'm very proud of you, and congratulations. I hope it just sells and sells and sells. And it's a good time to release this with the solar eclipse and the new moon energy. So, yeah, it's a great time. I was going to ask you, I know that Australia is a real hotspot for UFO activity. At least I'm told this. So how are the UFOs where you are?
There was apparently some just down close by recently. And again, I haven't seen any. I used to live at Glasshouse Mountains, where I think there's supposed to be an underground base there. And people, psychics and things that I know who live there, have seen them just coming out of the mountain there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you haven't seen anything
I don't get to see anything.
Do you have screen readers, Helen?
I must do.
It's almost like you put blockers on or blinders or something.
Well, it's funny because I haven't read anything either. You know, like all of those philosophical books that intelligent people have read. I haven't read any, and I'm pretty sure that part of my programming said, no, don't read anything, so that way you can have more of a natural feel of what feels right rather than what everyone's thought about before.
Yeah, that's
great. It makes me quite ignorant in a lot of ways.
I don't think so. It's good to follow your own radar and your own intuition, and then later on you can confirm it through books. That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
To some degree. Now, you have creativedevotions.net. Is that your art website?
No, there's two websites. One is creativedevotions.net, is just a general one with various strands to it that I couldn't even try to describe. And the art one is Helen's Arts at helensarts.webs.com. But I think there's a link to it on Creative Devotions, so it's easier to just say creativedevotions.net.
Wonderful. Do you sell your paintings?
I've just had a bunch of them that were hanging in a restaurant, a local bistro here, and
nice.
They've renovated, so they're actually for sale. So if anyone sees the paintings that are at Le Bistro Jardin and would like any, let me know.
Well, that's wonderful. That's awesome. Have you thought about painting people at all, or doing portraits? Aura portraits, energy work? I mean, painting their energy field?
No, not so far.
Okay, well, that's something to think about. And Helen, we're out of time here. I just want to thank you so much for joining us. It's been wonderful.
Well,
pleasure.
You for having me.
My pleasure. And you take care over there, and we'll talk soon.
And have a wonderful new moon eclipse.
Thank you, and you too. All right, stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back.